All right, and we're back. So as I said at the end of the last video, we're going to start this one with the unconscious nonverbal cues with symbolism and the use of language. Now let's see, where can we start? And it's ironic that we're starting with language to talk about non-language. So maybe I should just make this video a bunch of silent moments, huh? Okay. So we're gonna bring out some ideas here. And we're gonna use many different disciplines to sort of explain these concepts. And we look at science, we look at the stars, and we look at the way smoke behaves and the way things behave in nature. And we can sort of classify, this is going to get good, I hope you guys are ready. This sort of classifies two movements in a one thing. Let's say our sun. Our sun is performing a centrifugal and a centripetal force. So there's the force of the space moving in on itself and causing a spin, and then the movement going back out in this sort of feedback loop. And to my experience, everything behaves this way. If you watch smoke rise, it's rising and then it loops into itself and dissipates, and this is what everything does. So let's take that and apply that to human behavior and how we are built as people, and the fact that the densest parts of us are always going towards the center, right? It seems the bones are denser in the middle, the nucleus of things is in the center, fusion happens at the center of larger bodies, and so on. So the heat is in the center, at the peak, and so we're doing this, and we're constantly receiving, interpreting, and sending out information, whether it's in the form of visual cues, auditory, just sensory in general. Excuse me. And so that is the most of what is going on with us. That is when I say the unconscious is all of this. We don't sense every cell, what it's doing, and all of the activities that are being done. And we also are unconsciously deciphering messages that are told to us by language. When somebody says something, it's not even just what they say and even necessarily how they say it, but it's the intention behind what is being said and how that reaches you. And this, to speak from a sort of spiritual, maybe even metaphysical point of view, I find a characteristic that I'm trying to get to know and amplify is this discernment, this ability to listen to somebody, watch somebody do something, and be able to decipher and tell what is going on in that person to sort of create that behavior. Because an issue I was having a lot of times that was leading me into trouble is knowing that somebody had some sort of malintent, but they themselves didn't even realize, but that I reacted way too soon before I realized what that intention was. So let me sort of give an example here. Somebody is projecting their sort of unconscious fears by saying something, and they start to say it in such a way that it's very convincing. Most people maybe around you are completely eating it up. They're soaking it up, and it just sounds so perfect. It sounds like everything they want to hear. And then you sort of, give yourself a second there. You think about it. You pay attention to it. Okay, and you start asking questions. Okay, but what is this person really saying? Now, if we know about the data that most things are unconscious, we can start to actually include what is unknown, which is sort of strange, the fact that we don't know it. We don't know what is unknown until we know it, right? So, and this has everything to do with bringing your sort of unconscious impulses and desires to your conscious part of your soul or your brain, to sort of examine them and say, wait a second, there's a little bit more to this, right? And when I think about just everything, when I think about our day-to-day interactions, but I also think about the political system, the socioeconomic system, it sort of goes back to what I was saying in the previous video, where somebody can have just the strongest argument and have so much data, and you don't have the facts or the data to back it up, but yet you know there's something in you. You're listening and you're saying, I know what you're saying, but there's something deeper. There's something you're communicating to me that's deeper, right? And this is perfect in the sense that the political body is sort of getting you, saying all the right things, getting you in this comfortable position. But what's really behind the scenes is the use of guns and force that, if you don't cooperate, comes in after. And this has so much to do with the transnational corporations that sort of go through all these countries and they say no, like the World Bank, and they say no, we're built specifically for these humanitarian needs. We discuss with them, we discuss with leaders about policy and incentives and all these things, and my job is calling me. I don't want to answer it. I'm going to call them back though. They're going to be like, can you come in? Who knows? So, this intention. And part of this whole system is to get people confused. It's to help people turn into apathetic human beings, because they're so built with the confusion and the rhetoric that they're like, not only do I not understand it, but I don't even want to listen to your rhetoric, especially with religions too. The rhetoric is just insane, and the propaganda, and so you're like, get it away from me, or you're sucked in by it and you don't even realize it. That happens too. And so you really start to understand. And okay, I'm just gonna separate for a second to say that the people who have had a major influence on the way things go have a very huge understanding of symbolism. They know how to attract, they know how the human psyche works and how it associates. And I mean, you just have to use the laws of the universe. Just use basic laws to understand association, repetition, resonance, attraction. These sort of laws, very basic, constitute the behavior. I mean, that's how I'm able to explain to you the centrifugal and centripetal motions of matter, and that has to do with the sort of laws that they create with their relationship to each other, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to go on that little side road detour to say that our symbols in life, our symbol, what things represent, and whether we understand them or not. I mean, if we don't understand them, I think another tangent was just automatic there, and so sometimes I wake up in the morning, and this sort of pattern of thinking kicks in. You just wake up and you have these thoughts, and if you don't stop yourself, you'll keep this pattern will perpetuate, and before you know it, sometimes you can think yourself into a mood that then has an impact on how your entire day is going to go. And I've always had this question of, okay, what is impacting me? I was asleep, nothing happened. How is it that I can wake up and this sort of pattern of thoughts starts kicking in, and then before I know it, I'm associating this memory with this sort of thing that happens and building up this sort of emotional response as well. And this sort of goes into, actually, to me, what I think Aman was talking about when he talks about in the brain sciences that we've been able to discover that there's really these two kinds of people, this sort of 80-20 rule. And I think that has everything to do with the sort of manifestation of your receptors, your neurons. You're a giant receptor, but obviously there's just different purposes for the different sections and stuff. And so just like on a planet, there's a different structure and purpose of a landmass versus the body of water versus the hot magma inside and the layers of rocks and metals and minerals. And life is just complex. And so what sort of shape, what sort of tone and shape is what people say to you or what you say to people? What sort of tone and shape is our political body sending us with its collusion in the banking system and the transnational corporations that are, government subsidies, ruining people's lives, ruining the land, ruining just everything. Monetary policy, what is the tone and the frequency and the characterization behind these things? So let's talk about nonverbal stuff. What we fail to see, I think, a large part of the time is what we are right now. Like, let's say you're like me in mid-20s or even late 40s or teens or whatever you are. What you are is also because of the associations and repetitions of what you were doing before, right? If you had a traumatic experience, that association is going to be very potent in the sort of things that you do from that point on. And plenty of brain science shows that when you have certain traumatic experiences, they can cause damage and scar tissue on your certain parts of the brain, just as a physical thing can. So can a sort of, because it's all this electrical shock. So when you are experiencing a traumatic moment, it's like your brain is actually receiving very powerful shock to it. So I am sure that it can create burns and sort of very subtle damage to your brain. And a lot of this brain science is showing that when your reasoning part of your brain is damaged, that has a lot to do with you making very strong, impulsive responses and not being able to handle situations unemotionally and just all of the baggage that comes along with that. And we have to obviously correlate the current standing socioeconomic system, how it functions, and how that trickles down to, you want to say the commons or the lower echelons. I'm not saying lower as in inferior. I just mean lower in terms of conscious power, maybe. And so our system is clearly doing all sorts of crazy things with, not only we're being even more divisive than before with the use of this social technology and stuff. And so we once again, we have to consider all these things that are supposed to work but don't work because what? Does it go to bad parenting? Can we say that? Can we say that because you weren't provided with certain associations and repetitions of what it means to be interested in truth and be interested in virtue and be interested in quality of life, and because other values and ideals were implemented, that means you're the result of that, right? That seems pretty basic. So this nonverbal stuff, what we verbalize then are just the stories that we tell ourselves, right? It's just our own brain's ability to do that self-spin and recreate itself as a feedback loop, a mirror, if you will, to maintain homeostasis, right? I mean, whether that's you want to comfort yourself in delusion, or you tell yourself things because you realize, like you've got to persevere, you've got to endure this hardship, and you've got to make it, right? And so there's almost not much else to say. I mean, there's probably a lot of things to say about it, but I can't think of anything, because I just wanted to sort of talk about just the behind the scenes stuff. What is actually going on behind what you are telling yourself, or what you're telling other people, and me included. I'm just you because I'm looking at you. And I mean, because this relates everything to our lives, and that's very important.